Okay, so the EPA audit. As you know, my dad and I run a construction company together. We do remodeling and whatnot. And a couple weeks ago, I got this email from the EPA basically saying that we were getting audited for lead safety. And I wasn't too concerned about it because I do all the lead testing and we do really good at taking care of our paperwork. But I forwarded that to my dad and he like didn't sleep at all that night. He was so nervous and I felt bad. Like he's even kind of sick now. I think he was just really stressing about it. But it's a really big deal when you get audited by the EPA because if they find that you aren't in compliance, they can fine you like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you never know who you're going to be talking to. Is it going to be a nice person? Is it going to be not a nice person? But he was trying to do a bunch of research about these audits and he couldn't find very much information. So I thought I would just share my experience with it and share some of the things that I learned talking to this auditor to help prepare people and hopefully ease people's minds if they are going through this audit thing. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but you're going to want to follow like some certain guidelines. So let's see. So we had all of our ducks in a row. We're a lead certified firm and I am the lead certified renovator. So that's the first thing we had to prove. We had to show our one for the firm itself, for the company, and then another for me. And me being the certified renovator, like the individual, I have to be the one that does all the testing, all the training, all that kind of stuff. And we had to show them our certificates. If we couldn't provide certificates and we weren't certified, then we could have been fined up to $9,000 just for that. And something that she told us that we didn't know is that all of our subcontractors that worked on any of these jobs, and these jobs are any building or home built before 1978, because in 1978 is when they stopped using lead in paint. So anything built before 1978, if you're going to do any kind of work that might disturb any lead paint, you have to test that paint and follow a whole bunch of procedures. And every single subcontractor on the job site is also required to be certified and to follow all the procedures. And there's a handful of paperwork that you need for each one. You need the firm's certificate of, or just like the certificate showing the firm is certified for lead safety. You need the renovator's certificate, so the individual at your company who's responsible for it. You need a 2-page lead testing form for each project that you do that shows all the project information, the information about the lead tests used, the location of each lead test. And I recommend taking pictures of every single thing you're doing because for us, we didn't have this page 2 of that document. For some reason, we were just missing it the whole time. So I've never even used page 2. But luckily for me, I took pictures of every single test that I did and I wrote on the margin on the side of the paper like where the locations that I was testing, because it was common sense to me, like I need a log where I'm actually testing. But it turns out there's another page for that. You got to have that 2-page form for the lead test. If you find lead on a project, you have to give the homeowner or your customer this lead safety pamphlet. You can give it to them physically or digitally, and you have to get a signature from them as a receipt showing that you gave that to them. And that's all the things that happen before the job. So any project that you do on a building built before 1978, you have to do all this stuff. And if you are working on a building that's pre-78 and you aren't certified, you're opening up yourself to huge liability because these auditors are known to stop by job sites and actually do an audit on the fly. And they will ask every single contractor on the job if they're lead certified. If they're not, who is the certified renovator, and that renovator is responsible for everything that all of those contractors are doing. So that's all the stuff before the job. And if you find lead, and then while you're actually doing the job, there's 2 other things you have to do. I mean, they have a whole bunch of procedures that you have to follow: masking things off, double bagging, cleaning the air. Like there's all sorts of procedures that they want you to follow. And you want to have photographic evidence that you've been following all those procedures. So lucky for us, we took a lot of photos of everything we were doing on all the jobs that had lead. We had a HEPA filter, we had a particle counter, we had masked off every doorway, every area that wasn't to be touched. We covered the ground outside. We double bagged everything. We did all these things. And I had to demonstrate that I had trained all of our employees to follow all these procedures. And so what I did is, since I know how, I created an online course that had each one of our employees watch a couple videos and download the lead safe book. I mean, it's a 100 or 200-page book. And then they had to answer a bunch of questions on an assessment. And because I use this online platform, I had a record of every employee taking the assessment, how many times they had to take it, what questions they got wrong the first time. And I had all this digital evidence. And so that was substantial enough for them to, let us pass on that one. We also had to show them the permits. If we pulled any permits for any of these projects, we had to show them that. We also had to show them the contract with the scope of work. And so this is an area like we passed, we did fine. But if I was doing a lot of these renovations, pre-78 renovations, I would be extremely careful with the scope of work and be very clear with each subcontractor inside the scope of work of what the work area is that they're supposed to be working on, and that this project does not cover, this scope of this project does not cover anything outside of this work area. Because, hopefully all of your subcontractors are certified with the EPA. But if they're not, and one of them goes off and cuts into a wall that has lead in it, and you don't have paperwork showing that you tested that and did all the things you're supposed to do, then you're going to be the one that gets fined for that. And the fines, I heard of one smaller contractor getting fined 250 grand. So these fines are really serious. And if you are obviously not following the rules, they will stick it to you. But I found with this auditor, she was really nice. She wasn't there to screw us. She was just there to make sure that we were doing our best to follow all the rules. And even though we didn't do it perfectly, we put our best foot forward. We tried our best, and we were able to get through with no big deals. Long story short, if you're working on pre-78 homes, you got to get lead certified. It's like a one-day class. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but you have to do it. There's a lot of paperwork that comes into it or goes along with it. And if you are doing this kind of work, take a lot of pictures, document everything, and make sure that you're charging for this, because your customers need to pay you for all this extra time and effort that you put in to working on their projects. I wrote an article on this where I outlined my experience. I put down some guidelines, a lot of the things I talked about here. And I'm also over there on my website. I'm going to share with you how I put this online training together so that you can easily put together your own training if you need to train your employees. I'll even show you the assessment I used, and then you can do something similar for yourself. Make it easy to train all of your employees and get the documentation you need to prove that you followed all the rules. So head over to my website, check out that article, check out the guidelines, and don't sit on your hands on this one. If you're going to work on these pre-78 homes, you need to follow these rules or you might be put out of business.